Hello good people and welcome back to Level Up Your ELO. Today we'll look at a 12-year-old Magnus who was causing all sorts of sorcery at the chessboard. And at that age, he has all the makings of a future great. Spoiler alert, he was a world champion and still the best player of our time. In this game, Magnus shows how creating subtle advantages can lead to a tactical supernova. So let's boost up the ELO. Let's get it!
Round 1. Fight!
This game took place in 2003. Magnus would be 12 in Copenhagen, Denmark. 25th Politiken Cup. Magnus plays as white and Hans Krogh Harestad, rated 2249. I probably butchered that. Plays as black. Oh, before I forget, if you find this content useful, entertaining, and somewhat is able to elevate your ELO, please leave a like and sub. You have my gratitude. Let's get started. Magnus starts with e4, e5. We have knight to f3, knight to c6, and he plays the Ruy Lopez, the Spanish. a6 in this variation. Bishop to a4, knight to f6, all the standard stuff. Magnus finishes development and castles fast. Here b5, booting out the bishop, and likely bishop to b7, but this is just also standard maneuver to get the bishop out. Maybe knight here later. Knight to b3, bishop to e7, rook to e1. Magnus doesn't touch the c or d pawns yet. d6, c3. Now ready for the pawn thrust on d4. Castle king. h3. Prophylaxis, doesn't want any pins. Knight to a5, like mentioned. Magnus preserves the bishop there. c5, now attacking the center at d4 twice with the two pawns, and Magnus creates maximum tension, pushes d4. Queen to c7, knight b to d2, knight to c6, re-attacking the center, and here Magnus just closes the center with d5, knight to d8. And here's a nice and theoretical, but a maneuver that if you're not familiar with the position, it's not really a maneuver, it's a pawn push on a4. And the idea is to create space here, but also how to fracture the opponent's structure. If the opponent takes, then you have ideas here. You can take here, knight to c4, at a wonderful square, unchallenged. Right now nothing can challenge this square at least, and this falls. And this will be a target later on in the game, a weakness, so to speak. So after knight to b7, say, takes, you can put the other knight here. And positionally, you are winning positionally. In the game, of course, after a4, the opponent is not a patzer. Rook to a7, knight to f1, remaneuvering, likely putting here, g6, and then a bishop to h6, rook to e8, knight to g3. I'm just going through the moves here. Knight to d7 here, and after knight to h2, pushes here. The opponent could also push here, just taking up some more space. This configuration where black holds on to the pawn structure there, and white has the pawn thrust on d5. All is even according to the machine. Now, how do we proceed here? f6 by black, covering that square, maybe attempting to trap our bishop here. So bishop to e3, pointing at the rook, but also keeping the bishop available whether it's needed on the queen side or on the king side. Knight to b6, takes and takes, and bishop to d3, creating holes, asking, do you want to push? But then your dark squares get weak. The opponent doesn't budge and instead plays a bishop to d7. Queen moves up, now threatening to take, or rather imposing more will on the dark square diagonal right there. Knight 2, takes and takes, and then queen to e2, again asking, I'm threatening b5. Do you want to push c4? It's a bit of a bluff. It actually doesn't worsen the position that much for black, but then there's this idea that now I can go and have better control of the dark square diagonal. The opponent doesn't budge. Knight to g7. Again, superimposing the attack on h6, maybe threats here later. But of course, if you take, there is a slight problem now because you've introduced the queen in front of your king. There's a bishop there. There's potentially knight moves, so a pawn push here is now welcome for white. Now you have to defend. So white doesn't take the knight and plays king to g7, bishop to c1. As you'll see, Magnus tries to reinforce the b2 pawn, knight to a4, and now moves back after a push, likely. And as you can see, Magnus's forces are aimed at the king side. And usually this is the play to see who in this chess debate, in this mental debate, who is correct. Attack on the queen side or attack on the king side. And here Magnus continues to try to break open the king side. The opponent finally pushes c4, paralyzing the pawn here. Rook to f1. You'll see Magnus slowly aiming all the forces here. Knight to c5. Knight to h6. The opponent does not take, instead plays a knight to g5. And here Magnus uncorks f4. Brilliant move. Brilliant move. Idea is to open up this f-file here, and it's super trappy. If black takes the pawn, then you have f takes on h5 with check. After takes, this is open. Your king is pinned. What are you going to do? Well, after rook to f7, your king is in major, major trouble, and you can't move the rook. Well, you have to move the bishop, but then you get pinned even more. So no, that is a poisoned knight. In this position, he takes, and surprisingly, the computer gives it some form of equality with just plus 0.5 for white. After takes, the opponent fumbles just a bit. It looks like a blitz move that's gonna work, because if you take, which Magnus doesn't, then you get forked. But Magnus calmly shuffles the queen, protects this, keeps the options open, and then now is planning to take here and here, as this is defended. So black moves back to bishop to d7. And here Magnus, from where we started, a quiet position, uncorks e5. Brilliant move. Giving away a second pawn, forcing you to either take here or take here, but more importantly, you have an active bishop pair. You have two sniper rifles for the price of one move. After d takes e, here we go. Magnus sacrifices the knight on h5. And yeah, it's totally insane because Magnus has foreseen all of this. If you take, which he did, Magnus sacrifices the queen. And for what, you might ask? Well, if you play as black and you refuse, then that's a checkmate. And if you refuse, that's a checkmate. So I don't know if black has seen this, probably just wanted to be gracious, but here we go. F takes on g5, Magnus checks. If you go here, you get checkmated, and he plays the classiest way to lose, and I don't know if you've seen the loss, but with those two sniper rifles there, you only need one sniper rifle to conclude the game. And this sacrifice on h5, closing any exit squares, causing black to trip over his own pieces, is just absolutely, positively brilliant by Magnus. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that mini analysis session. I'll see you guys later. And if you like the content, please leave a like and sub if you haven't already. I'll see you guys later. Double peace!